nailed on. Absolutely nailed on.
Yeah, the problem he's got, the Zuma, is that Caicedo is deceivingly sharp.
Ooh, almost got you guys there, didn't it? No worries at all. That's what I, Donald Champion, I'm here for. Anyway, so we're here today with one of the most promising young talents in the field to investigate a question that scientists from all over the world are tackling right now. And that is, which of the following statistical factors, total market value per team, average player age, total number of substitutions per season, and the number of players per squad, most influence a team's chance of making the round of 16 in the UEFA Champions League over the last 10 seasons? It's a mouthful, I know. Well, Mr. Hub, what is your hypothesis?
What's a hypothesis?
Great question. Well, a hypothesis is essentially a proposed explanation that's made on the basis of limited evidence. It's kind of a starting point, usually.
Well, in that case, my hypothesis is that the team's total market value and the number of substitutions.
Great choice. And could you please explain why you think this?
Well, typically teams with high market values tend to attract better, more reputable players. And similarly, teams that have more substitutions throughout their matches, which is essentially switching out players on the field for players on the bench, which are not massive five of, will also benefit from these freshly warmed up players and more increased
Very interesting indeed, yeah. We'll find out shortly if you're correct, my friend. Now, this investigation started out by gathering the necessary data, which includes statistics from Champions League matches from 2010 to 2021, roughly corresponding to the last 10 seasons, as well as transfer market recordings. Oh, by the way, transfer market value refers to the estimated financial value of each player's contract. Now, once these scientists gathered and cleaned this data by removing all missing information, merging the information from the transfer market data with the statistics from the match, they were able to perform what's known as exploratory data analysis, which is essentially a method for analyzing data sets to kind of summarize their main characteristics and understand any potential relationships between variables that might arise. Do you want to know what they found yet? Well, by applying each of the variables against points, which are essentially the thing that's needed in order to progress throughout the tournament, they were able to represent these relationships in graphical form. So here, for example, we can see a plot of market value against points and another of substitutions against points. And we can see a slight positive correlation for both, which gave these scientists already a little hint of what these relationships would show. They then used the data to plot what's called a heat map, which is essentially an image that uses colors to depict correlations between variables. And here, once again, they found that values for substitutes versus points at 0.85 and market value versus points at 0.64 were pretty high values since they're out of 1. And these could likely be seen as pretty influential factors. And we can see from the values of average player age and total squad number that these values weren't really that influential. To continue with their analysis, they then separated out the teams into the teams that qualified, in other words, that made it through to the next round, and the teams that didn't qualify. And so using what's called box plots, as we can see here, they found that once again, market value and substitutes were, in fact, they showed the greatest differences between two categories. And we can see here that teams that qualified had a much higher market value, and the range was significantly higher for the teams that qualified. And they also had a much higher median value. And similarly, for substitutes, the teams that qualified were showing a much greater range in the number of substitutes than the teams that didn't qualify, which means that they used far more substitutes during seasons. And once again, we can see here that age and number of players didn't really get them anywhere because they're more or less the same between the groups. We can also see, again, the market value influence in this chart over here, with higher market value, proportionally qualifying more to the next round. Finally, the team did what's known as fitting a logistic regression model, which essentially is used to calculate the probability of advancement to the next round based on selected features, whichever ones we choose. And what they found was that substitutes and market value were once again significant predictors for teams advancing to the next round. It's just like you said, yeah, you really are the best in the game. Now, something interesting that the study showed was that while average age was not generally an influential predictor, the average player age for teams advancing to the round of 16 was centered around 27 years old. Pretty cool, right? Anywho, we got orders from HQ to also talk about limitations and ethics and privacy and all that stuff. Now, all this data was 100% public, pretty easy to find as well, so there weren't any major privacy or ethics concerns for this research. Thank God, right? We don't want something else like that happening again. Now, there were some limitations in findings, obviously. One of them, it does become kind of obvious that when a team progresses further throughout the competition, they do play more games and they thus have more opportunities to do substitutions. And this might not be the most accurate predictor of a team advancing to the next stage because the higher substitutions, the higher the team already was. Furthermore, with a game like football, has countless dynamics and strategies. There's no one factor that acts in isolation in the determination of a team's success in the Champions League. They're all interlinked, linked together in ways that are much more complicated than this study showed. And that's why things like this require further and exciting research. Anyway, that's all for today, guys. You can join us next week to find out whether a giraffe can do king of swingers.